Ignite to impact.
How many of you out there are happy about your work-life balance? If you ask your friends or family, or maybe even do a social media poll about whether you feel good about your work-life balance, most likely people will say no and wish they had the secret sauce to finding that elusive balance. But what if work life balance isn't the real problem? Mhm. And perhaps the issue is not knowing how to set boundaries, is what we need to be focused on. Hi, I'm Dr. Geneva, vibrant life coach and business strategist. And I want to talk today about how we can look at this whole subject about work life balance and help you figure out what it is about work life balance and maybe get that elusive balance in your life. So, I want to help you pinpoint your weakest boundaries so that you can know exactly how to change. So, listen, uh, I don't know about you, but are you tired sometimes and feeling like you drowning in stress and getting nowhere? Well, I feel just like you sometimes. And I remember when I got appointed to head up this multi-million-dollar organization. And I, it was one of those first things, I was the first Black, first woman. And though I had been in the organization for years and years, this was something really different. You can watch things or run organizations, but when you in that top position, everything changes. There's nothing like that top position. And I was really spinning. I was also had that career and that work thing, but I was also married, had an older teenager, raising younger children, and had a home life as well. And I found myself spinning and in stress and constantly trying to figure out what I was doing, drowning in stress, really feeling like I was getting nowhere. And this work life balance, I would hear people talking about it, but I couldn't find it. Wherever it was, it was just elusive until I figured out the secret to finding that balance. And what I finally figured it out was that it wasn't so much about the being balanced, because sometimes that is a myth, that equal split between work and life. I'm not sure that's real. So it wasn't really as much about that balance as it was about setting boundaries, knowing when to say yes and how to say no. And this topic of boundaries is touchy for some people, because we're used to wanting people to like us. I mean, as we're grown up as kids, we're taught to be nice, play nice, share, all of those kinds of things, and we want people to like us, and so it's hard sometimes to figure out, well, how you can say no, or how you can limit you know what it is you're doing, because you don't want to offend people or hurt people, or have them think bad of you. How many of you feel that way? Let me know, drop it down. We're going to be real. And again, as kids, we are taught to be kind and helpful. Okay. Um, but here's the thing. Without boundaries, we run the risk of being taken advantage of and ultimately giving up the power over our own lives. And when we stop and think about that, I really believe that, we don't want to give up that power, do we? And so setting these boundaries is important in life. And these boundaries help us focus on what matters most and actually get those things done. That is, those things that we think are priority, we can get them done. And boundaries can help us determine what will and will not get our attention. And so they have this effect of helping us focus on priorities, um, helping us focus on what we should get done, helping us find the time to do what's important. And we only have so much time, energy, and bandwidth. So we have to pay attention to how we use and how we spend our time. And don't we want to spend our time being productive, happy, doing the things that we want to do? So, if so, what I believe is that if you want to have any semblance of balance between your work and life, that you've got to have boundaries. You absolutely need them. So how did I discover? So, first of all, I want to know what you think. So, do you feel that having boundaries is important to in your life? Do you feel that boundaries can lead you to a better work life balance, and that perhaps learning about focusing on how we set boundaries and whether or not we got boundaries can make a difference in work life balance? Let me know in the comments, whether you live now or even on the replay. I'd like to hear from you. So, how did I discover this secret to feeling good and getting more done at the same time? Well, frankly, there's signals. There are cues that let us know, that can help us pinpoint our weakest boundaries. And I think that this is important, and that's what I want to drop with you, because if we know how to figure out and kind of focus on, pinpoint where we have boundaries or where we don't, or if we do have boundaries that kind of weak, that gives us the great information about what it is we need to change. Okay. So I want to leave you with 7 signals that you have weak boundaries in your business or in your life. So, yes, I'm going to send a shout out to you, my entrepreneurs and my executives, those nonprofit leaders out there. I want you to listen good, and let me know. Or, you don't have to let me know. You could just roll it around in your own head. Okay. Do you have any of these things that are happening in your life that indicate whether or not you have some weak boundaries? Okay, so number 1, the first cue that you got a weak boundary, that you have weak boundaries, is you try to do everything yourself. Okay. So now, if I'm speaking the truth, if some of y'all just raise your hand or just say yes, let me know. Give me some feedback now. So if you try to do everything yourself, you're refusing to allow others to help. If you're running a business, you're not outsourcing things that you can do. And, what does this do to? Why do you do that? Is it because you want to have, you know, you got some control issues? Or perhaps you don't have the funding if you're running a business to hire others. And we've talked about that before, that you might be a solo entrepreneur and you don't have anybody else. Um, and so perhaps the lack of funding, because you don't have the dollars to bring in other people, okay, is why you do everything yourself. How you doing, Ariel? How are you? Mwah, mwah. Is that my friend Ariel Johnson? How you been? Uh, it's so good to see you. And Ariel says yes. Okay. So sometimes I think Ariel is admitting, saying, and that's great, to put it out there that perhaps she's trying to do everything herself. Okay, it's okay. All right. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Yes, Ben says, thanks for the inspiration information. Oh, okay. I wish you could have helped me to understand work-life balance prior to my retirement. Ben, have you retired? Oh my goodness. Well, listen, the need for work-life balance never goes away. Okay. Because you might not be doing that 9 to 5 that you used to do, but you might you know, have taken on another career. Maybe you're running your own business or what have you. But this thing about balance, and let me tell you, we talk work life, but it's also work family, family social. There's all these conflicts between the need to be balanced between all of these areas of our life. So it still matters. Okay. Linda's saying yes to that, maybe trying to do everything yourself. And let me tell you, when you are running your own business and perhaps you're by yourself, it's kind of hard perhaps to, you know, um, let others do it. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think about this. I want you to dig deep to perhaps find some of the lessons in your past, possibly your childhood, why you feel you need to do everything yourself all the time. Because let me tell you, you don't, even if you're a solo entrepreneur. I started out by myself when I started my business in my late 60s. And for the first couple of years, it was just me. And I found myself, you talk about balance, I couldn't even spell the word. Okay. And I learned, though, that I had to figure out, I really, when I stopped and thought about it, I really had this feeling that everything had to be perfect. And in order for it to be perfect, I couldn't trust anybody else to help me. So that was the burden I carried. When I realized, one, that everything didn't have to be perfect, that it just really had to be done. And then I found out that, I really said to myself, well, there's a whole bunch of people in my life that I've trusted. I can perhaps put some trust in that. I started saying, and I began to find ways that, in fact, I could bring people in. Interns that I didn't have to pay a whole lot, but they wanted experience. Going to places like Fiverr and Upwork that are really, really, okay with your pocketbook, people who'd be willing to volunteer to help me. And soon, and anytime that I made a little bit of money, I turned it around to start bringing in people. So, anyway, I wanted to spend some time on this first signal because I struggled with it a lot myself, and I hear other people do. But this thing is a cue. Try to do everything yourself. Okay. Number two, a cue, a signal that you've got some weak boundaries is you have low energy or you feel depressed and worried all the time. Now, feeling defeated or worried every day ain't going to help you. It's going to cause your motivation to lag, and it really causes you to feel out of sync. and you got this low energy, or you're feeling worried, etc., because you're doing everything yourself, you're not saying no enough, you're not saying yes to the right things like self-care and those things that'll make you help you feel better. And so I want you, if you're feeling, low energy, and this is part of your work balance phenomena, that I want you to think for a moment when this began, and then start thinking about some of the reasons. For me, when I was feeling like I didn't have no energy, I didn't even want to get out of bed, I found it was when I was getting ready to launch my first product for sale. And I was just working on it, worried about it, wasn't really getting sleep. And I had to stop and say, wait a minute, why am I feeling this way? And kind of backtrack what got me here. And that's what I'd like you to try to do. If you feel that you don't have that a lot of energy, or you're lacking motivation, just stop for a moment and try to figure out perhaps what are the causes. Because once you can, maybe pinpoint what some of the causes are, what some of the cues are, the signals, then you can do something about it. You could change. For me, I just said I had to put my foot down and set a boundary about what time I would get in bed. And I also set a boundary on how I would eat and what I would eat before I went to bed, because I found that was disturbing my sleep. I wouldn't get enough sleep. Then I was irritable. I wasn't feeling well. And because I was irritable, wasn't feeling well, I was getting more worried. Worry can creep in. So it's that cycle. So that's why you have to stop and think about the cause. And I get into a lot of this in a video that I just put on my YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, y'all. I'm on YouTube. And so please go over there and subscribe to my YouTube channel. But I went into a deep dive on self-care ideas, particularly for women in business. Okay. The third signal that, perhaps you got some weak boundaries, is that you're resentful of your clients or customers and opportunities. Uh-oh. In other words, why would you say, well, why would I be resentful of my clients and opportunities? But what it really is that you feel irritable about that you're putting out energy, giving up your time, and anything that causes you to do that. And again, you aren't setting the boundaries. And if you're an entrepreneur or person in business, clients and customers are the crux of your business. So you shouldn't be feeling this way. But if you don't have the energy to enjoy the work or serve them like you want to, this is a problem. And you can see some of this when you're working long hours, where you're responding to anything your client asks for, even if it's on the weekend. So are you answering them phone calls on the weekend? Are you having coaching sessions late at night and you don't want to? What is it that you're doing? And perhaps some great opportunity is before you, but to do it, you're going to have to work even longer. You'll have to do some weekend time. You'll have to maybe give up on that vacation that you had thought about. And after a while, when you're giving up these things, you begin to resent. So you see where I'm going with this, how you can resent your coworkers, the people you work with, your clients, your customers, or even opportunities. And again, you're not putting limits on what you say yes to and how you say no. And you resent taking on these longer hours. So here's what I want you to do. I want you, if this is one of the things that you're into, I want you to just kind of brainstorm some ideas, some ways that you can set some boundaries in terms of how you work with other people. Talk to others that you admire or respect and ask them, what do they do? How do, ask someone, well, how do you, not work these long hours and weekends? What do you do to conserve your time so that you really enjoy more the work that you do when you serve the clients like you want to? Maybe you should change if you're in one-to-one business, if let's say you're a coach, maybe you want to change the venue where you do your coaching sessions. Perhaps you can meet in the park or some other venue where you hold your meetings, where you interact with your clients or your customers. But brainstorm some ideas so that you can, find some joy and get that joy back in your life. In terms of dealing with your customers. Now, let's get to another signal that perhaps you feel that you don't have these boundaries. You feel guilty. Now, this goes along with the one that we just talked about, but you feel guilty because you're not actually serving clients at the level that you'd like to. What does this mean? It really means that you kind of stretch thin. And you know what? If you're stretched thin, trust your clients feel it or your customers feel it as well. Your family feels it. Your kids feel it. Because why? Because you're irritable and you got, you want to do all these things, but you're burning your candle at both ends and it doesn't work. And then you feel that you're stressed out, that others feel it, and then you start to feel guilty. Again, it's this vicious circle, and it leaves you. And then when you're feeling guilty, you sometimes overcompensate. And so then you have even less time to give to yourself and to focus on your business or your customers or your clients. And it just goes on and on and on. You see why setting boundaries and limits is so important. Um, so start a list of brainstorming ideas where you can handle this workload. So just actually take the time to sit down and ask yourself, well, listen, I know that I'm feeling guilty about how I'm serving my clients, and I'm really not feeling that I'm doing the best I could with listening to my children. I'm stretched myself too thin. What can I do about it? Sometimes the simplest solution is just to stop, recognize where you are, and ask yourself, well, what can I do about it? And you know what? You don't have to change the world when you stop and do that. You can do one simple thing, like I was telling you that I did. I changed the time I went to bed. I was going to bed at 11:30. I don't do that no more. I'm in the bed by 8:30. You do what works for you. You do you, but you can do just one thing. Okay. Number 5. Now, here's another signal, okay, that perhaps you've got weak boundaries. And this is the one that I think many of us find ourselves with. I want to know whether you agree with that. This, you say yes just because you don't want to say no. You fear disappointing others, and not because what you're saying yes to is actually a priority. Okay, so how many of you do that? You say yes because you don't want to say no, and sometimes you don't know how to say no. I think I'm going to do a whole video on. In fact, if I remember correctly, Tisha, someone that we were talking to last week, and that subject was on burnout. When we talked about saying no And how do you do suggested? We came up next hot topic. There it is. That's what I'm going to be doing next. How to say no with a smile, with no explanation, and have people love it. So, I ain't going to go deep into this signal because we're going to dive deep into it next time. So I want you to be with us. Is that next Wednesday, Tisha, that we're going to do that? I think it is. Next Wednesday, we're going to do that. So I want you to stay tuned for that one. But this one, where you say yes just because you want to, you say yes just because you don't want to say no, is a big one. We're trained to be polite, and particularly in business, we fear that we'll hurt our reputations. I work with this client who that was one of her biggest fears. And that was that if she said no to certain opportunities, even though they really weren't in her bailiwick, but she felt that if she said no, she would not only lose that business, but really she would get a reputation. And she didn't want to do that. And that was her fear. That was her fear when we first started working together. She don't have that fear no more. Okay. Because I've helped her learn how you can say no, that it is a complete sentence, and that in fact, by saying no to various opportunities, you are saying yes to yourself. And there are some specific strategies. Oh, and you can have fun with it. You really, really can. So stay tuned for that one coming up next. But that is a cue or signal. And then the next one, that's a signal for you. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but I want to say it to you very specifically. It goes hand in hand with this feeling of low energy or feeling worried or depressed. And that is you're dealing with poor sleep, poor health, or just simply not feeling good, feeling bad as you go about your everyday life. Okay. If you're feeling that way, you ain't setting boundaries that work for you. They're too weak. And again, burning yourself the midnight oil at both ends, candle both ends, whatever that saying is, you're doing too much. It saps you of your energy of your life, and you're no good for nobody, particularly yourself. Hey Luther, how you doing? Oh, thank you, Luther. Luther says that I'm a sweet and wonderful speaker. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for that compliment. Um, it's a vicious cycle. This, we talked about it before. This lack of sleep affects your health, which affects your productivity. You get irritable, things start sliding down, you feel bad, it keeps you up all night. You got to do something about that. You have to set the limits, the boundaries, whether it's for yourself, for example, what time you go to bed, or your kids. Because if they're up, you're going to be up. So you might have to start there. And, turn off the TV, things like I'm not going to watch, the news or the TV after 7 p.m. or whatever it is, those limits. I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water no matter what. I'm going to get into this habit so that it'll make me feel good, non-negotiable self-care activities. Hey, see me on my YouTube channel. I talk about that as well. Go over there and subscribe, would you please? Luther, would you go over to my YouTube channel and just become a subscriber? And you can hear me talk and speak about other things, talking particularly about that peak performance that we want to have so that we can live a vibrant life and do all the things that we want to. And then the last one, okay, I'm winding down. As you can tell, this is a favorite subject of mine, this whole thing about work-life balance. But this last signal that you're not setting limits, that your boundaries are weak, is that you don't feel that you're making any progress towards your ultimate goals. and that you're really doing what's necessary to get by in the here and now. Any of y'all feel like that? I know I have. You trying to just get by. Let me just make it through this day. I don't feel like I'm making the progress I need to make. I don't feel good about it. I'm just trying to get by day to day. You're not, um, and how does that relate to weak boundaries or the limits? That's because you're not crafting your day, your time to focus on what's important, that you're working in your business rather than on your business if you're an entrepreneur. Okay, so in other words, you're doing a lot of busy work, you're keeping, your focus, you're doing that, you're responding to emergencies, you're being reactive as opposed to setting time, very specific, intentional time to be proactive about your business, going out there, focus on what's important, being proactive about taking your vacations, being out there about being a role model for self-care for not only yourself, but for your family, your coworkers, and the people who work for you. Okay. So, you want to make sure that you're progressing and that, you're feeling what you're doing is worthwhile. And in order to do that, you just can't, get by here and there, that you need to be proactive. And if you find yourself saying, and this is one of the mistakes I made when I first started my business, I found myself all the time saying, "Oh, I just don't have the time to go after that new piece of business. Oh, I wish I could follow up with that person I met. I think they want to work with me, but I don't have time." When you're doing that, okay, that means you haven't created those limits. You haven't set the boundaries that say, I am going to do XYZ within this certain time, no matter what else happens. I'm going to devote my time to working on my business, or spending the time with my children, whatever it is. um so Leah says, oh, hey, Leah, is it wrong if I check off all seven in one way or another? LOL. Can't wait until next week. So Leah says she got all seven of these cues, that she got some weak boundaries. And it's okay. Because, that's the thing. You ain't, first of all, Leah, you ain't by yourself. Okay. You know, I feel you. You ain't by yourself. And secondly, isn't it wonderful that we have the opportunity to grow? Wouldn't life be just boring if you stayed the same, did the same old thing all the time? But no, we're blessed that as human beings and God's creatures, that we can grow and improve and change whenever we want to. Which gets me to the last thing I want to say about work-life balance. And that is that, sometimes we think that we are not in charge of creating our business or our dream life. Mhm. Somehow we have that thing in our heads. And, and particularly if you're a business owner or an executive, you're in the workplace, you have this great job, you're a leader in the community, you have difficulty grasping the concept that you are in charge of what you do and creating your dream life. And it's either because you worry that you'll be doing it wrong, or that that's some formula that you haven't figured out in order to be successful. Well, there may be best practices in your niche or your industry, but really the rest is up to you. It really is up to you. um, you have to find out what works best for you, your family, for your career. And there's no one size that fits all. Now, sometimes you want to, work with a partner or a coach to help you figure that out. That's what I do with hundreds of folk, and I love doing it. But it really is about you. So, my coaching philosophy is, you really got it. You are good enough. You want to grow, you want to improve, you want to change. Well, I could be a partner with you to help you discover what you already have inside, and to help you discover tools and techniques and strategies that I've learned, that I'm experienced in after 40 years plus working in this field. But it's about you. You do have the power to create your own uh, dream life and your own business and set boundaries. And though boundary setting can feel intimidating, it is. Whether you're setting a boundary with a client, with yourself, with a friend, with a colleague, it's actually one of the most important things that you can do for your mental health and the health of your life and your business long term. So, and it can create that peace and freedom that you truly, truly love and want. So, let's get it on. We need to get it on. We need to understand when we talk about this work life balance, that it can be a myth that everything all the time is in equilibrium. It doesn't really work that way. And really what it is about is getting on to learning what to say yes to, how to say no, and understanding that in fact you can create your own dream life, your best life. And that's why I'm so delighted that you join in these conversations with me, because this is the place where you can learn how to design your best life, your most vibrant life, as well as a better world. I'll see you the next time.
Ignite